One of the most absolutely disappointing things to me when I started researching the 18th century was that there wasn't a whole lot of celebration around Christmas. Christmas is my favorite time of year. I love the holidays this time of year, and I love the winter. If there's a foot of snow on the ground, I'm a happy boy, and I want that to last all winter long. And I like to gather around these tables with family and friends and kind of just have a celebratory feast. They did have 12th night, they did have things that they were celebrating, but the whole idea of Christmas just wasn't really happening. It wasn't really celebrated in the 18th century. So you cannot just grab your favorite 18th century cookbook and go find a Christmas dish because they're not titled that way. They're not talked about that way. Sometimes what we have to do is say what would be a good celebratory dish now, and then look back and say, okay, what can we find similar to this in the 18th century cookbooks? And that's what I've done today. For Christmas this year, I wanted to think about this in a different way where it's not just Christmas fowl. We've done goose, we've done duck, we do turkeys. I wanted to do something beef. So I wanted to do a really neat take on a roast beef. So I started looking through historical cookbooks, landed on Charlotte Mason, as I often do because it's such a wonderful book. And this recipe really stood out because it's got a festive take, it's pretty special, and we're gonna have a lot of fun with it. To dress a fillet of beef, it is the middle of the sirloin. You must carefully cut it all out from the bone, grate some nutmeg over it, a few crumbs of bread, a little pepper and salt, a little lemon peel, a little thyme, some parsley shred small, and roll it up tight. Tie it with a piece of pack thread, roast it, put a quart of milk and a quarter of a pound of butter into a dripping pan and baste it. When it is enough, take it up, untie it, leave a little skewer in it to hold it together, have a little good gravy in the dish and some sweet sauce in a cup. You may baste it with red wine and butter, or it will do very well with butter alone. What I will say real quick is that it calls for a tenderloin essentially, and that can be a really expensive cut of meat. Right now, for me, with our family, it's like if there's something on sale, that's what we're getting because beef is very expensive. This is actually a top round. And so it will work the same way. Just get you a cut of beef and we can make this work. The first thing that I'm gonna do is flatten this meat out. And so basically, depending on the thickness that you have and depending on the cut that you have, you're either gonna butterfly it, which is to kind of cut down the middle of it so that then it will unfold and lay flat. Or with this, I don't even know the correct terminology or if I did this in any kind of correct way, but I almost did like around the inside, almost like a Swiss cake roll, right? Because at the end, we're gonna roll it up and it is gonna look like that. It's going to look like a Swiss cake roll or a pastry roll. Think of it like a flat sheet cake. You frost the whole thing and then you roll it up. That's what we're gonna do with this. We're stuffing this piece of meat. So we want it to be flat. So then later when we put everything in it, we can roll it up and then tie it. So whatever you need to do with your particular cut of meat to get that done, usually butterflying it will work. But this was a little funky. Next goes on the seasoning. So we've got grated nutmeg, salt and pepper. We're gonna chop up some parsley and some thyme. We're gonna use some breadcrumbs. And it calls for the peels of lemon. So I'm just really peeling one lemon and I'm gonna mince that up real fine. And then you're gonna pack all that in. After you get all this on here, we're gonna press it in and then we're gonna roll the meat up. After we get this rolled up, we're gonna tie it. Now, depending on the size of this cut of meat, depends on how many times you're gonna tie it. A lot of people will tie this by portion sizes. It doesn't really matter as long as you tie it up and it stays together. So I'm tying it 3 times across where I've got it rolled up so it won't come undone. And then I'm gonna tuck a piece of this twine underneath those ties so that it holds together. And then I'm going to hang it from this one. And this gives me something that I put on my S-hook and hang it over the fire. Once it's over the fire, it's by and large a waiting game, but it does call us to baste this with some butter and some milk. It says to take a quart of milk and a quarter pound of butter and baste this. Now you're just gonna baste it every once in a while. Make sure to get a pan underneath to catch the drippings. And we're just gonna make sure this thing doesn't dry out and we're gonna roast it. And after it starts to get finished on the bottom side, we're gonna flip it over and hang it from the other side so we get a nice even cook. Recently I did an episode on good gravy, and if you haven't seen that, go watch that when you're done with this one. But if you want to know what they're talking about for this particular recipe, the good gravy that they're wanting is for you to catch the drippings as this roasts over the fire in a pan. So I've got a milk pan underneath there, and it's catching everything that drips, and that's what I'm basting from as well. And then you have that gravy left over for later. So you can thicken that up if you want to, but you don't have to. And that it's just the drippings from the meat. So that is our good gravy for this dish. There seems to be some 17th century Christmas celebrations that we can see in history. We don't necessarily see a lot of Christmas stories or a lot of Christmas cooking, though, until after Charles Dickens comes out with A Christmas Carol. And when that happens, everything changes because it just kind of erupts and people turn it into a holiday that they want to celebrate, a holiday that they exchange gifts on, a holiday that's based around the table. So in that book, we see a Christmas pudding and we see a Christmas goose. And then we start seeing things being called Christmas cookies or Christmas dishes. But before then, we don't really see that. And then it just keeps on going. So now when we gather around a dinner table at Christmas time, depending on where you are in the world or even in the country, you're going to have certain expectations that are going to be there. So a lot of people will have Christmas turkey or a Christmas ham. Oftentimes, I think for my family, it's kind of the same thing as Thanksgiving dinner. It's not a whole lot of difference. It's like both of the winter holidays, you expect the same kind of food, but maybe not for you guys. So what do you guys expect to see as a Christmas dish? The more I cook from this time period, the more I'm convinced that with food, there is nothing new under the sun. There's still, there's molecular gastronomy and there's cooking with chemicals that wasn't happening in the time period, but I didn't expect to see a stuffed beef loin in this cookbook. It's really neat. I look forward to dishes like this now, and I didn't think they dated this far back. Okay, this is incredible. It really looks good. It turned out way better than I expected because I've never made anything quite like this before, where it's stuffed, it's rolled, and it's hanging and trying to get the whole thing cooked. I thought that it was going to be more difficult than it was. And it's got this beautiful crust on the outside with all the seasoning and everything, and then there's also all of the herbs and the breadcrumbs and stuff on the inside. So I'm going to try to get a bite that's got everything. This looks really wonderful. Let's give it a shot. Oh man, the lemon kind of permeates that whole interior, and it's really, really nice because you need that brightness to cut through. And it's there with the herbs, so you get that all in one bite. But on the outside, I put quite a bit of pepper on this, and I salted it heavily, and you get this whole like crust of like this peppery salty to mix with that. It's really good. I can't say that the nutmeg's screaming at me. It's probably just kind of in there in the mix with all the spices, but dang, this is way, way better than I thought that I would be able to do it on my first try. But this is a perfect, perfect holiday centerpiece dish. And I think that any guest who would come along would just love this. So make this for the Christmas table. I encourage you to. I think that you'll love it, and I think everybody else will too.